In addition to the fights on the UFC 209 card, there's been some stuff that's been going on in the last week or so that I wanted to go over. First thing I wanted to hit on was Dominick Cruz's interview with Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience. This was an excellent interview. So a lot of what was went over is Dominick Cruz's injury issues in the past. He was just going through the storyline of where it started, how it went along, and it worked its way towards the end where he was talking about his fight with Cody Garbrandt and talking about what he sees in the future. So one of the more concerning things with this is he was talking about in the past how he'd blown his knee out a couple different times, and he blew out the other knee. And he was saying that heading into the camp for TJ, he came in, he was on a boat pretty much when he got the call, had about 12 weeks, got into it, started training hard, and that's when he started having issues with his feet. That's obviously when he suffered plantar fasciitis on one of his feet. Now he's at a point where it's on both feet. And the problem with plantar fasciitis is it's something that doesn't go away. So he's been talking about in training how he trains with wrestling shoes, he tries to wear orthotics, and he tries to keep his feet comfortable. But this is going to be one of those things where if he can't manage that over the course of his career, it's going to make his game very difficult to implement. A lot of what he does so well is based off of footwork, and if his feet keep becoming an issue for him, and if it keeps getting worse, you'd have to be concerned that over time it's going to make things really difficult for him to get back to his old form and get back to the point where he's at a title. Now, one of the points he was making with the Cody Garbrandt fight is that he felt like Team Alpha Male had finally figured him out. And if you watch the fight, when you were watching it live, and again, when I was watching it live, you'd see Cody making fun of him. You'd see him kind of dancing on him. It just seemed like Cody was just trying to make fun of him, just trying to get in his head. Those taunts weren't just to piss off Dominick. Those taunts were specifically related to footwork and different moves that Dominick uses. So Dominick he describes it as around 10 different sorts of footworks that he uses. I would watch the BJJ Scout video series on him. He does an excellent job of breaking them down. But past fighters, they just hadn't been able to catch on. It seems like over time, Alpha Males caught on to that. They caught on for Cody Garbrandt. Garbrandt was well trained for him. He was able to avoid a lot of Cruz's techniques. He was able to understand when Cruz was going to try to elude him and go exactly to where Cruz was going, and that was why he was so effective. But even still, Cruz won a couple rounds in that fight. He definitely took some really hard shots. After he got cut on what was either the headbutt, which is what they said on the fight card at the time, or whether it was a kick. After the cut, he said that he stopped playing so defensive. He got a lot more aggressive, and that's when he started getting dropped a lot in the fourth round. You'd have to think in a rematch with them, it's still going to be tough for him, because he did admit that Team Alpha Male has him figured out. So again, that begs the question, are you going to be adding to your game? If so, how much work are you going to put into that? What kind of effect is that going to have on your feet? He was saying that he just wants to sit back right now, let Cody and TJ fight, which should be around July. And then once they're done fighting, he'd like to fight the winner of that. It'll be interesting to see how that works for him. If he's spending this time just kind of recovering, it's going to be good for his body, but for a rematch with Cody, he's going to have to bring something new to the table, and if he's not working on it now, it's going to make it very difficult for him to win that fight. For a fight with TJ, again, TJ's had 5 rounds with him. That was a very close fight as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but Dominick Cruz is one of these guys where early in his career, I found him to be very annoying. His fight style is very annoying, but the more you hear him talk, the more you hear him break down fights. The guy's brilliant. He understands what he's doing. He's got a unique way that he looks at fighting, and that's really helped him become as good as he is, even though he's not the most athletic guy at 135. I'm very interested to see what happens in the Cody and TJ fight. Obviously, that's going to be a very big fight when it comes around. TJ, he's not the most interesting guy, but the thing that's good for him is that he's got that background with Team Alpha Male, and there are fights there that just kind of build themselves up even without him having to do much for it. And this Cody fight is a great example. It's unfortunate for TJ he never got to have the fight with Uriah Faber. I think that would have sold extremely well, especially if it was for the belt. But him and Cody don't like each other. They've had a past. There are stories where TJ had knocked out Cody in training. There were stories where Cody had knocked out TJ. I'm sure they're going to get very heated on The Ultimate Fighter when that comes out. The fight itself is going to be very interesting to see who's improved the most since then. Was there a clearly better fighter at the time since then? TJ has talked about how it kind of went back and forth, but he said he got the better of it. A lot of times when you're saying it went back and forth, you're saying you got beaten a lot. I think it's going to be interesting. But again, whoever wins that fight, for Dominick Cruz to fight them for the title, I think that's relatively fair. I would have liked to have seen Cruz fight a guy like John Lineker in the meantime, but if he's going to take the time off, get a little healthier, and maybe even use some time to improve his technique, that'll be great. and hopefully he comes back, and towards the end of the year we get to see him again, because he's a very interesting fighter to watch. He does things so differently than everyone else that when you get to see him fight, you're seeing something new, you're seeing something different. And I mean, the guy's actually a pretty good shit talker too, so whether he's got his rematch with Cody or whether it's a rematch with TJ, he's going to sell the fight well. He's going to make it a very interesting storyline just to kind of see who's going to win from a grudge match standpoint, but technically it's going to be a very interesting fight as well. And so it's good to hear from Dominick right now. It'll be good to hear from him in a commentary standpoint on UFC 209, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for him.